I always tend to test out the market. So before I went into DSLR photography, I got myself a little tiny one and just see how it went and learnt my lessons. And so I'm not with DSLRs in that sort of sense. So I did the same thing with LED lighting, and I went out and didn't invest a large amount of money. I just thought, well, okay, here's now a time to just try these panel lamps out. So I got not the leading manufacturer, I got a sort of Chinese copy of the leading manufacturer at a reasonable trade show style price, and thought, well, hey, I'm set now. And really just fell in love with the whole idea of absolutely cool running lights that can go anywhere, that are easy to live with, punch out a reasonable amount of light, almost enough to do that famous in the office looking out into a panoramic view. Not quite enough. But it became obvious in the edit suite that something was going wrong. Because, I mean, basically we are just ordinary human, we're animals, okay? We have this strange visual system. And one of the things that we're very good at doing is looking at somebody, looking at their skin tone and saying, are you healthy? Or are you infected with some ghastly, horrible disease? And making that instant sort of decision. So we know skin tone, all sorts of variances inside that, but we know what makes skin tone. We can't describe the little blood corpuscles that are just underneath the dermis with a certain subcutaneous fat, which is, that person looks fit, that person looks sick. So I noticed, getting my interviews back into the edit suite with my wonderful Chinese knockoff LED lamps, that people were looking a bit freshly dug up. I mean, they're not dead, but you know, they had that kind of grey pallor. And I think quite a lot of people sort of found the same thing, that really there's the thing about continuous spectrum, and that is an important thing to bear in mind, because if the light doesn't hit the thing that bounces it back through the lens, you're never going to get that back. It was never there in the first place. There's no amount of twiddling in the post that will put that flesh back into the picture. And so you could kind of make it look a bit porridge, which is pink orange, and generally sort of give people a makeover with a skin sort of plug-in. But it wasn't right. And so I thought, okay, I'm going back to tungsten. I've learnt my lesson, leave that alone, until I fell in love with Felloni. Felloni is one of those panel lamps that it doesn't look like it's going to be absolutely amazing, but for the first time, here was a device, a unit that would pop up, had all the effects of a proper LED lighting system. It was lightweight, it was quick to set up, ran cool, lasted a long time on a V-Lock battery, but you could plug it in if you wanted to. And had this wonderful thing, which is the variable color temperature. And suddenly what we're doing is, you know those nightmare lighting situations, I do them a lot of these conferences and exhibitions where there's tungsten, daylight, fluorescent, all sorts of light, maybe even some effects light. And that can really mess around with your white balance. So we started using the Felloni with this wonderful half and half, half tungsten, half daylight, and just tune it according to what the feel was in a particular spot, in a particular room. And instead of mucking about with the CTO gels and the CTBs and seeing what's going on, you just go, that's the one. And so that again really made the shooting a pleasure, a joy. And there wasn't that single shred of fear of going back to the edit suite and thinking, oh dear, we've got some work to do on this one, because the skin just comes alive and you can feel that, you can see that through the monitor. Get a good OLED monitor as well, just to make sure that that's what we've got. So the Fellonis have been a joy to work with. And then we went one stage further. Panel lights are great, but then again, how about diffusion? That wraparound thing. But what the Fellonis have got is this sort of strange box that goes on the front, and there's like 2 layers of it. It's not just a bit of diff over the front. There's a little hanky in the middle, which pins into the corners, and then you put the separate bit of diff over there. And what you get is this beautiful, solid beam of light once you put the egg crate on there, which just hits the face and just curls around it in a most beautiful way. And that on a lamp, you'd think, gosh, that's going to be a pretty expensive thing, I can't afford that. But actually, I can afford a couple of those. You know, it's not, it's one of those standard little panel lights, and I feel that when it comes to the future, everyone will go and get their standard little aspheric focusing Dedo spot of some sort, and they will also have a panel lamp like the Felloni, which basically just handles so much of that sort of interview style lighting situation. Well, this is the most basic, straightforward form of lighting. We're going to do a quick little demonstration here with the wonderful Fellonis. I'm going to bring up this light here, and again, immediately we're having a nice soft wraparound light from its wonderful diffuser. and I can just gently tune in the colour temperature to where I want it to be about a nice rich golden kind of glow. Now you compare that very nice sort of light source with the same unit but without the diffuser, but with a honeycomb instead. I'll just fade that one down, move over to here. And now again, if we bring up the other lamp, so your very traditional kind of harder light source, they're both Fellonis, both panel lights, but we can still have this wonderful 1940s hard key sort of thing. So what I'm going to do now is just add the fill, just get the right exposure about there, and again I can fade the fill in and just judge the exposure difference just gently there. And this is one of the wonderful things I love about these LED units, because I can fade up and down without altering colour temperature. Colour temperature is available to me to like give it a nice cool sort of dramatic effect, or I can give a nice warmth inside there and suddenly the golden hour is upon us. I can drop that down and give a nice rich tungsten glow, because I like lighting at 4500. It's this new wonderful colour temperature. Now again, Rick, to the camera please. Into the camera, that's great. So I can now just balance this up a little bit. And hopefully what we're seeing is that a wonderful skin tone, where basically it's natural, it's human, it's warm. We like that. We're very used to seeing what skin should look like. Now what we're going to do is take these wonderful Fellonis away and replace them with my ever so slightly cheap knockoff Chinese ones, and we'll compare the skin tone. Here we have the same setup, but with the cheap Chinese LEDs. Now if I turn that off just to see there's a little bit of a glow, and one of their specialities is their very smooth dimming. As you can see, butter smooth, if you like your butter with broken glass in it. Now they do have quite a lot of power, but is delivering a very cold, slightly green, insipid light. We're not cheating here. This is the kind of light, with white balanced to them, this is the kind of light they're giving out. Immediately you can say, actually, there is a slight temptation of the Incredible Hulk here. I mean, there's a little hint of green, but if we then bring the other side up, hold on. So here it comes. We'll just bring that as a key, if I can get it to be the right level. When you get what you pay for here, right, I'm going to just cross over once more and bring the fill down a bit. And again, gently trying to get that contrast that I want. Rick, if I can give you imaginary friend around about here somewhere, that's right, that's good. And again, fighting with the backlight and fighting with a dimmer here. There we go. That's about, if I just go a little tap, that's it. Ooh. So, again we've lit and it's a slightly flat sort of look. I'll just give it down a little bit, very hard to, there we go. And we could be fighting with this for a while. But again, what we'll do is look at the different types of skin tone here. And although we have white set, you'll notice there's a green tinge because the LEDs are fighting its little lack of certain frequencies and it overboosts things. Now, over time, if we have these lights on for about 3 or 4 hours, that colour temperature might change a little bit more, because as the heat warms up, its LEDs do get very warm, but not on the front side. They get warm on the rear end, and it needs some sort of heat sink to take that heat away. Otherwise, it'll change the colour temperature, not of the whole thing, but of a series of LEDs inside there. So you're never quite sure what you get. So hopefully as we look around the skin tone, it just feels a little bit more dead. Unfortunately, I have to use that phrase. Rick, you do look like you've had the morning after the night before, and I can't put that back in post. Now that was so bad, so green, I couldn't believe it. So we're back with our wonderful Chinese knockoffs. Again, I'll just gently increase the light level as one can. Now here we've done a proper white set with these lamps onto a proper white card, just to make sure, even though we set 5600 Kelvin on the cameras, of course it's not a proper white set unless you get the white card out. Now if I can just get the right kind of fill, again favouring the invisible friend over here, that's right. Now what we'll do is we'll do what we did last time, which is a soft fill. So I will take this lamp here and blast it into the ceiling. So immediately that becomes our overall general fill light. Clamp that off. And then if I can ask Rick to favour my side over here, your invisible friend. And again, we'll just try and get quite a striking softness. If I could get this thing, there we go. So how's that looking? It's kind of looking a bit more skin-like, good. And again, we can increase the drama a bit, but it's still very hard to actually get. That's a bit on the hot. I'm going to just drop the exposure just a little bit. There we go. So that gives you a bit more sort of thing to play with. I would like to put a reflector, one reflector, just to pick up inside there. Arms up. That's it. Is that going to do anything just to bring a bit of light into there? Now again, because we haven't got the softbox that we have on the Fellonis, we're just trying to find out some ways of just taking the edge off of those shadows. And with a bit of playing around, we can get there. You're looking still a bit very stern, Rick. So I'm going to have to find out some ways of, actually, if we just blast even more there. Again, friend over here. There we go. Now that's probably about as good as I can get these Chinese knockoffs to look. But I'm sure that when you compare those with the Fellonis, there'll be no contest at all. Let's have a look. Moving back to the Fellonis, this is one of the joys of working with them. I mean, they can chuck out quite a lot of light as well. We're not actually using very much of it because the distance between the light and the subject is quite short. Again, as we move the lamp closer, so we can increase the contrast ratio. See how directional that is with the honeycomb. Beautiful, it's like having a spotlight there. And then I can flatten that off by pulling the camera back just to reduce the amount of contrast inside there, inverse square law of light and that sort of thing. That's what I'm now going to cross over to the fill and just bring that up gently. And again, the same size unit is very easy to control, but compare that to the Chinese knockoffs. It's so much more straightforward. Again, I could blast things. I'm not going to blast them. I'm going to just gently lift. And because these are battery driven and lightweight, I can move this around by hand and I can work out where should I actually put this for the best kind of use. And we're in excitingly small situations today, for quite a small room. And I can still play with the lamps and the position, and basically I can even stick these into little tight corners and just use them to illuminate corners of the room, that sort of thing. So, much nicer skin tone. Happier with that. We've got the DLED 4 at the back to give it a nice sort of cool backlight, which I quite like that kind of cool look. And again, working back at 4500 rather than that, either is it tungsten or is it daylight, which gives us wriggle room for colour temperature at either end. And especially if we had to balance this light with the outside sort of light. Okay, actually, you want to come and favour me over this side, imaginary friend over here. So we'll now use a soft key. So I'll bring that to about key level. And we'll switch over to, actually that's a little bit cool. I'm going to warm that up. There we go. I'm going to move over to what was our key. Now what we could do here is actually bump it up onto the ceiling and blast the ceiling to see if we can fill that way. There we go. That gives us a whole new look. And again, I'm going to cross over to the side and perhaps bring this down a bit so I can play with the contrast ratio. It's not about the amount of light, it's about the way the light works. We could do this with redheads and blondes and it'd be too much. We have to put scrims up and nets and all sorts of things. And here I can just play with little delicate things because our wonderful, large chip cameras can take just a soupçon of light and I can play with that beautifully. There we go. Now we just alter the framing slightly here. Again, oops, just zoom in slightly. Tilt up a bit. All the things that camera likes to do, and then imaginary friend over here, Rick. There we go. There we go. And then we've got this sort of big, soft bounce light on the top from the Felloni with the honeycomb on it. We've got a nice soft key quite close to the subject to give more drama to the light. If we pull that back, we get a much blander light by pushing a big soft key closer to it. So what we've got here actually is by bringing the soft key closer, we're getting more contrast in the face because of the old inverse square law of light. And essentially what we're doing is making our little pocket money panorama. Big soft key there, wrapping around, tempering that with the backlight. I mean, this is standard interview lighting techniques, but you can play and twiddle and it can be done anywhere, absolutely anywhere, rather than having to bring in your lamps into a studio somewhere and set things up. We can literally do it in a garage if necessary.